Okay, let's get started. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this TradeStation webinar. This is our Getting Started with TradeStation series. And every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Eastern, we do a particular TradeStation technology or TradeStation trading platform. Today, we're going to highlight the TradeStation Desktop, but always keep an eye on the new classes or upcoming classes on Wednesdays at 10 a.m. because we rotate the trading platforms. And sometimes we talk about the mobile app. Sometimes we talk about Hub, and we also talk about web trading, and we also talk about Option Station Pro. So, depending on which trading platform you're using, yes, we have a class for that. Today, as I said at the very beginning, it's all about the TradeStation Desktop. For those that are new to the TradeStation education team, my name is Jesus Nava. I head up the education team here at TradeStation. For me, it's always a pleasure to be here to talk a little bit about TradeStation and show you some tips and tricks that are available on the TradeStation platform. So let's go ahead and get this started. The usual disclosures, just keep in mind that every symbol and idea that we talk about is for educational purposes only. These are not recommendations of TradeStation. Also, active trading is not suitable for everyone, and past historical performance is no guarantee of future results. If anybody needs additional information on these disclosures, please go to tradestation.com/important dash information and you'll find all the disclosure links there. Okay. Let me go ahead and switch over to my TradeStation platform and let's go ahead and get this class started. All right. We are looking at the TradeStation platform at the moment. And what I have open here is a TradeStation Today workspace. This is how TradeStation loads up if it's the first time you're looking at this. TradeStation Today was designed to give you information about what's happening in the markets at the moment. That's why you have the news feed right there in the middle. We also give you sort of a small calendar of events here on the right-hand side. Even though if you go to when you go to the TradeStation website and you go to learn and you go to the event section on the TradeStation website, that's where you find the full list of events that are upcoming. Here on the TradeStation Today workspace, we only have the upcoming 6 events, but you can register from the TradeStation desktop as well. You'll notice that this is the one we did yesterday, automating your trend line trading strategy. This is the class today, and this afternoon we have a special options webinar at 2 p.m. Eastern Time titled Beta Hedging with Index Options or Protect Your Portfolio Beta Hedging with Index Options. So if you're an options trader or if you're interested in trading options, this is a webinar that you don't want to miss. Again, today at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, you can register either from the TradeStation desktop or you can go to the events page and look for that event as well. So going back here to TradeStation, I'm not really sure how much time you've been with TradeStation or how long you've been using it, but I know that there is a learning curve when it comes to the TradeStation desktop. And the reason why is because there's a lot of tools, there's a lot of things you can do on the TradeStation desktop. And from basic things as open up a chart, as more advanced things as setting up multi-leg trades and activation rules and all sorts of features that are going to help you become a more effective trader. So let me go ahead and open up a new workspace. Right here at the bottom left, you have the ability to click on a new workspace. I'm just going to click on the plus. You see that is untitled because I haven't saved it. So as you create workspaces in TradeStation, you're going to want to save them so that you don't have to recreate them every single day. And that way, when you open up TradeStation, is exactly how you left it with all the charts, with all the indicators that you are using. But always remember that you do have to save the workspace. And the best shortcut that I know is just to right click on that tab and save the workspace. Now, in this case, I have an empty workspace. I don't have any applications opened within it. So if I save it right now, I'd be saving an empty workspace. Not what I want to do right now, but I just want you to get thinking about how do I get started creating my setups and how do I make sure that every time that I open up TradeStation is exactly how I want it so that I can just get right into what I do best, which is trading the markets and analyzing the markets. From the apps menu right here at the top, you have access to all the applications that are built into TradeStation. Since we have a limited timed session today, we're only going to be able to focus on a few. I'm going to show you charting. Then we're going to jump over to chart matrix, and then we're going to show you radar screen. So those are the three tools we're going to highlight today. So let me start with charting, chart analysis. Anytime that you need a chart, it's just a matter of going to apps and clicking on chart analysis. And you can do that as many times as you need charts. Right now, I'm just going to do one. And all these chart analysis windows are, you can click and drag to any location. You can drag by the corner and resize them to any form and shape. I'm just going to resize it so that it fills the whole screen. Another tip that I'm going to give you is using the up arrow and down arrow key on the keyboard. If you press the up arrow, notice that it'll add space between the candles and it'll expand your view. If you press the down arrow key, it'll do the opposite. It'll compress the candles and show you more of that historical data. If you get to a point where all the candles are stacked here on the left-hand side and you have all this empty space on the right, it's because we're showing you all the data that's loaded on the chart. Of course, you can request more. Ways in which I request data are just using the keyboard because it's very efficient and convenient and fast. I know that I need data here. I know that because I've been using TradeStation for so many years, I know that if I pull up a 5-minute chart, which you can tell it's a 5-minute chart because right here on the top left corner, it says a 5-minute. So when I load a 5-minute chart, TradeStation only gives you 5 days of historical data. And not because they're stingy, it's just because we want your charts to load up faster. And if you're not really reliant on the historical data, we're just going to show you the most recent data and then get started there. If you do want to load historical data, of course you can. TradeStation has a massive amount of historical data that you can load onto any chart. In this case, for Johnson & Johnson on a 5-minute time frame, I don't need years and years of data. Let's say that we want to do 60 days. And if I want to do 60 days, I can just type in 60 days. And you can see how as soon as I start typing, there is a little command line that pops up because it's recognizing that I want to enter something, either a command, a symbol, or a time frame. In this case, I typed in 60 space days, and TradeStation recognizes that as a request to load historical data. So as soon as I hit the enter key, it's going to load 60 days of data. You saw that it did that in 2 parts. In fact, let me go ahead and do something. I'm going to do 30 years. Notice that I just typed in 30 years, and I'm going to type in 30 years so that you can see the state in which the chart goes into. So let me go 30 years. Everybody sees the PD in yellow right here on the top left corner. That's because it's pending data. I submitted a large request of intraday data, 30 years of 5-minute data for Johnson & Johnson. I'm not sure if it's going to be able to load it all, but it'll see that PD until all the data has been downloaded. That's just a visual indicator that something is happening in the background and that it's going to continuously download packets of data until it's able to give you the totality of data that you're requesting. Maybe I overdid it. Maybe I requested a little bit too much, but this is still pending data. It is a ton of data, so let's leave it here for a few seconds until it loads. Carl is asking, I have both equities and futures. Thank you, Carl, for joining us today. How would I open a new desktop for only futures market? When logging in, TradeStation always opens equities first instead of my preferred choice, which is futures. I have one monitor. Do you have a futures workspace? Because TradeStation will always open everything that you have open in the manner in which you have it open. In fact, you can control that also a little bit. Let me go to File, and you go to Preferences, and then you go to Desktop. So File, Preferences, Desktop. And when you go to the Workspaces tab, notice that there's an option here that says Open all workspaces from previous session. So if you've already organized your workspaces in the way that you want, every time that you open up TradeStation, it should open up that way. You can also do it by desktop, and desktops is a more general tool, which is the whole TradeStation platform. In your case, Carl, I heard that you have only one monitor. I have 2 monitors on my computer. Some people have 4, 5, 6 different monitors. So if that's the case, and you can open up an instance of TradeStation in each one of those monitors, those would be considered desktops. So now you have a higher level organizational tool, which is desktops, and you can also specify to either open all desktops from previous session or just open a specific session. TradeStation remembers what you had open before, and it should open in the same way. And if it's not doing it, if you've gone through all the troubleshooting you can and you're still struggling to get your things open in the sequence that you need them to, please contact our support team. They're available to help you and they'll troubleshoot your platform to see what's going on. Okay? All right. Great. So let's see how much data was loaded here. I'm going to scroll. I'm just going to use the scroll bar over here and just drag it all the way to the left. And I'm going to click and hold my mouse button. When you click and hold the mouse button on the background, you get this little window, it's called the data tips window. And it gives you information on the security for that candlestick that your axis is on. So I can put that vertical axis on the very first candle, and you can see that my data, you see a date right there in the data tips window. It says November 6th, 1995. So it did load 30 years of historical data for Johnson & Johnson. Back in 1995, Johnson & Johnson opened at $20. In fact, yeah, that's an even number. That's interesting. I'm not sure if that was the date that it actually started trading. Maybe there's more history here, but it actually loaded exactly 30 years of historical data. And Johnson right now, it's trading at 188. I'm not sure how many stock splits or reverse splits Johnson & Johnson has gone through. But like in the case of Apple, Apple has gone through so many changes in history that sometimes you need to take that into account. But in this case, you can see that Johnson & Johnson was able to load 30 years of historical data. You can change the symbol here to something different by typing it in as well. So if you wanted to pull up Tesla, for example, TSLA, I pull it up, and since I already had 30 years of historical data for Johnson & Johnson, it's going to try to pull the same thing for Tesla. So that's one of the settings that it's remembered on this individual chart. If I were to open a new chart on Tesla, it would go back to the 5 historical days. Something to keep in mind, because if you just have one chart open and you have all the historical data there and you swap the symbol or switch the symbol, it'll remember all the settings and it'll give you the symbol with all those settings applied. Okay, more information. We'll let that load for a moment. Tesla right now is trading at $443, which is the price you see here on the right-hand side. This information that you see on my chart is account orders and positions. By default, TradeStation is connected to your trading account. So you're going to see all your open trades and any historical trades that you've done. This position that I have open, I'm long 100. I can see that I was open back here. This is October 14th. This is a simulated account, but I opened that position back in October 14th, and I can see that my position is up about $1,600 because of the price fluctuation. It was worth more yesterday or the day before yesterday, but now there was a little bit of a gap down yesterday's price activity. But you can see real-time P&L on your chart. And if it gets a little bit too cluttered, of course, you can turn that feature off. You can come here to settings, account orders and positions, and then turn the status off. Just uncheck the box, click OK, and you can see that it disconnects your chart from your trading account. So sometimes it's useful and it's great if you're that type of trader where you want to see all your entries and exits. But sometimes if you want to focus on some analysis and you want to draw some trend lines or some indicators and everything is just getting in the way and getting too cluttered, you can turn that feature off. And how do we turn it back on? Settings, account orders and positions, and then we just check the status on one more time and the trading activity comes back on. Okay. All right. So Tesla, you can see the PD went away. So I know for a fact that the data was loaded. I can use my scroll bar and go to all the way back here on Tesla. And you can see that back in, what date is this? Let's see. Okay. So this is June 29th, 2010, which I'm going to assume that is the date that Tesla became public. So even though we requested 30 years of data, we know that Tesla was not around back in 1995. So in 2010, June 29th, it's probably the day that Tesla started trading. And you can see that the opening price on that bar is $1.21. Now, talk about some serious price increment, right? Okay, so let's go back here. Technical indicators. Go to studies, add studies. You're going to find all the indicators there. So feel free to go in there. We have five different categories of studies. We have the regular indicators where the bulk of studies are going to be. So if you're looking for something that's standard in the industry, like Bollinger Bands, RSI, MACD, any of those indicators, they are going to be in here. So browse through them. If you find something that catches your eye, you're not really familiar with what it is. For example, if you want to know what on balance volume is and how it's calculated, highlight it and then click on definition. Definition will take you to the help documentation and give you information of how unbalanced volume is calculated. Another new thing that was added to TradeStation is AI. Now, if I go back here to my TS Today workspace, I don't see it anymore. So there is a TS or Ask TS AI. Let's go here to the view menu. It's right here, Ask TradeStation AI. There we go. It just came back. For a moment, it just disappeared. But if I click on ask, okay, so you view the button. So if you come in here, you can ask any questions, and this will just search the whole TradeStation documentation and give you information about how things are done. So for example, how do I create a percent change chart? You ask that question, and then it drives this AI on the TradeStation help documentation and it provides me information about how to do that. Let's see if it's able to pick that up. And here it is, how to create a percent change chart in TradeStation. So you can method one using Windows settings, method two using the shortcut menu, or method three using the style menu. So there's different ways in which you can do it, but this is a great tool that has been recently added to the TradeStation Desktop that provides you information that is already existing within the platform, but sometimes it's hard to navigate if you don't know exactly what you're looking for. So use the AI tool because that's going to help you find the information that you're looking for. All right, let me go ahead and close out of this. Let me go back to the workspace that I was in. We talked about the studies. Let me just show you one example. I'm going to come over here and say, all right, what are we adding here? Something simple. Let's do a moving average two line. There's a checkbox here that says prompt for editing. Now, all studies in TradeStation have default parameters. So if you don't specify what the parameters are, it's just going to use the defaults, right? If you already have in mind what parameters you want, for example, if I say I want to compare a 50-day times a 100-day moving average on Tesla, for example, if I want to do that, I can check the box as a prompt for editing so that I can provide those parameters before it goes on the chart. You can do it either way because once they go on the chart, it's very easy to go in there and set them up. But I'll show you how to do that. Let me go ahead and click OK here. And when you go to the format or customize indicator, there is a tab here called inputs. And this is the place where you interact with the study. And for the fast moving average, I'm going to use 50. And for the slow, I'm going to use 100. This is number of bars, by the way. It's important that we understand how TradeStation studies calculate. So when we put in a 50 and a 100, it's not 50 days and 100 days. It's 50 bars and 100 bars. So if you think about it, we are looking at a 5-minute chart of Tesla. So if we're saying 50 and 100 here, this is not 50 days and 100 days. This is 50 and 100 5-minute bars. Let me click OK. You can see how the two indicators go on the screen. You can see that the faster is the one that is closest to the candles. So the blue one is the fast moving average and the magenta is the slow moving average at 452. But this is on a 5-minute time frame. Take a mental picture of these two numbers, 447 and 452. Because if I come here to the time frame drop down and I say I want to use daily bars instead, then you can see how different the values become. Now the fast is 417 and the slow is 369. Now it's using a 50-day and a 100-day because we changed the time frame to daily. So yes, the studies in TradeStation are going to be sensitive to the type of data that you put on the chart. If you and you can change the time frame at any time and all the studies will recalculate. This is what I was talking to you about, having a chart that is a little bit cluttered. If you do a lot of simulated trades, which I do a lot of simulated trades on Tesla, you can see that all my ins and outs are right on the chart. Those are all the blue and all the white markings. That's all my trading activity. And A lot of times it just gets a little cluttered on my side because I do so many examples. I'm going to go to settings. You can go to settings and account orders and positions, or the shortcut that I use is just right click on one of those little arrows, and then you get access to disabling account orders and positions directly from the right click menu. And that gets rid of the information. Customizing the studies in TradeStation is also easy. It just requires you to double click. If you double click, and be careful on double clicking, not be careful because you're going to break something. Just be careful, or just be aware is the right word to use. Be aware when you double click on TradeStation because it'll take you to a specific customized dialog. And depending on which item you double click on, it'll take you to a different customized window. If I double click on the studies lines or on the moving averages, it takes me to customize indicator. But if I move my mouse a little bit away from those lines and I double click on the background, it takes me to the customize window. It's different. Customize indicator to customize window, two totally different dialogues. Even more, if you double click on one of the candles, it'll take you to the customize symbol, which is a third different type of customizing window. They're all good because they all allow you to customize TradeStation and make it the way and make it look and perform the way that you want. So yes, you can customize the indicator, you can customize the background, you can customize the data. So what I would do is explore all the different menus and all the different tabs that are there. The fact that we have a nice AI tool overlaid on TradeStation does help you search for information. So if you find something that you want to learn more about, let's say, for example, we double click on the symbol and we find something like, let's see, okay, scaling, and you find something like semi-log. What the heck is semi-log scaling? If you're not familiar with that, you can say, okay, let me ask AI. I'll click here and ask AI. I'm going to agree to that disclosure and I say, what is semi-log scaling? Let's see if it's able to pick up the information. Okay, so here are the key characteristics of semi-log scaling, how it works, best use cases, comparison to linear scaling, and an example. Pretty cool, huh? So AI, please use it. It's going to be a time saver when you're trying to look for information. For indicators like this is Tesla. You see the two moving averages separating from each other. The crossover is not something that is going to happen soon since we see the two moving averages separating. But what you're looking for in a study like this, which is a lagging indicator, but the signal of a two-line moving average is whenever those two lines cross. It's like an indication that the trend is reversing and going in an opposite direction. Of course, I would probably use something a little bit more sensitive to current market data, something like an exponential moving average or something that is weighted by volume. But in this case, is using 50 and 100 equal weight average. If I wanted to turn these into exponential moving averages, I would have to add a different one. So I'm going to add study. We have the moving average exponential two lines. I can prompt for editing and say, again, 50 and 100, and they go on the chart. I should have picked a different color. Let me go ahead and do that. And you can do that on your TradeStation as well. I'm just going to choose a different blue. And for the slow, I'm just going to choose a different purple. That way, when we look at the moving averages here, we can see the difference. But you can see that my darker purple, which is 386, it's a little bit closer to the candles because it's more sensitive to what's happening right now. The other one is a little bit slower in responding because it's giving the same exact weight to all the candles that are in history. So yeah, if I wanted to do that analysis, I could. I can remove one of these studies by just clicking on it and pressing delete on the keyboard. That way it just simplifies the view and I'm able to see my studies a little bit more clear. If you're following a technical indicator and you're looking for opportunities to trade, and this particular Tesla, for this idea, this moving average crossover, it's still not set up for a trading signal. But if you're looking for signals like this, TradeStation does a great job at helping you finding those securities that are meeting certain criteria. If I was a trader that based my decisions on moving average crossovers, I can tell TradeStation, look for stocks that are crossing right now. Now, let's go ahead and show you how you can do that. I'm going to open up a new workspace, and I'm gonna open up a radar screen window. Radar screen starts off as a regular watch list, and you can enter symbols one by one if you want to. Let me open up radar screen here. All right, let me resize it. And you can see that it has rows, so I can enter symbols. I can say, show me Microsoft. You see how it loads real-time data for me. Show me Tesla. I see the price of Tesla. Maybe Disney. Maybe I want to take a look at Johnson and Walmart. Johnson and Johnson is green, is trading at $186 because it's 4 cents. Right now it's gray because it's flat. Compared to yesterday's close, that's what it's showing you. It was green for a minute, now it's red again. I can skip a row here and maybe do some futures. I can say, show me at ES. This is the S&P E-mini. I can also say, show me the NASDAQ E-mini. Maybe I want to track the price of gold. This is gold trading at 3,992 per ounce. And if I want to do oil, this is at CL. This is crude oil trading at $60 per barrel. So as for the symbols out of the top of your head, you can just type them in and hit enter. Nice thing about setting up your symbols this way is that you can also create labels. I can right click on one row and say data and add a label row. And I can just double click on that label and say futures. I can do the same thing here for my stocks and say right click on Microsoft, data. I'm going to add a label row and I'm going to say double click where it says label row and say this is my stocks. The nice thing about creating and organizing symbols like this is that it'll create groupings. So even if I sort by the last traded price, I'm going to double click on last and it sorts in ascending order. You can see how the groups are maintained and it doesn't mix the symbols together because we created a separation by either a blank row or a label row that separates the symbols, and you can see that they're not mixed. I can double click on last again to do in descending order, and you can see that the symbols remain within their groups. If I wanted to add another list here, I can right click here where it says watch list one, right click and said add a blank page. Because what I want to do is probably start with a long list of symbols. I'm going to go here to data and go to add symbol list, and I'm going to do the S&P 500. Now these are the 500 symbols that make up the S&P 500 index. If I click it, they'll be added right here onto my radar screen. You can see it's a big long list that has a label already, and it starts off with the index symbol itself. This is the NASDAQ. I'm sorry, this is the S&P 500 index. I don't need the index because that's something that I won't be trading. The index is not tradable. I can trade products based on the index, but not the index itself. And I'm going to remove this label because I don't need it. I just need the symbols that make up the S&P 500. Now, this list can be sorted and ranked in any way possible. If you want to see the most expensive stock of the S&P 500, just double click on last. You see the cheapest is AMCR, Amcor PLC, and the most expensive one, double click again, is right here, NVR, at $7,000 per share. If you want to see the one that's traded the most, double click one more time. And the one that's traded the most is NVIDIA, already with 45 million shares traded today. And if you double click again, the least traded is NVR. I suppose it's because it's of the price. Sometimes it's impossible to trade. We don't offer fractional shares. So if you wanted to buy just one share, that is going to cost you $7,000. So far today, only 3,200 shares have been traded. But ranking, it's great here in Radar Screen. Most of the time I rank by percent change. You can see the stock that has dropped the most is Zimmer Biomet Holdings. CBH is dropped 15, almost 16% of its price since the close of yesterday. And if you double click one more time, you see the gainers. You can see that this stock, Solstice Advanced Materials, is up 10% from the close of yesterday. So if you're looking for ranking and organizing symbols, Radar Screen, it's very simple to do. I can filter also and say, show me stocks that have a percent change greater than 5, and I'm going to add another filter, or stocks that have a net percent change less than -5. There we go. So now we see the two extremes. Now we're able to filter the whole list of 500 symbols and only focus on the ones that have changed at least 5% to the upside and to the downside. Maybe your strategy is to look at all these symbols that have dropped significantly or rallied significantly and looking for a correction. Maybe that is a strategy, and this just makes it very easy for you to find those symbols. Let me disable these filters. I'm just going to click on the minus here to remove. And for this one, I'm just going to select none to disable it. Because what I want to do for this example is I want to reduce my radar screen window here for a moment. And I want to add a chart. But I want to bring the chart over here from my other workspace. Any window that you've set up, especially if it's taken you a while to set up because you're changing colors and adding studies, you can right click and copy the window. Make it very simple. So I can go back here to my workspace where my radar screen is, and I can right click and say paste window. Here it is, paste window. It's going to paste a replica, and I can just resize it so that it fits my space that I have here on this workspace. Okay, there we go. Now, TradeStation allows you to link windows together. We have these linking buttons on the title bar. I'm just going to click on the S so that it turns that on. And as long as these two S's are in the same color, if you click on the little drop down, you have more colors. But as long as the two windows are the same color, they're linked into a group, allowing me to click on any symbol here on my radar screen like MU and have the chart update to that symbol. It's very simple to do. Now I'm going to come here to my radar screen and I'm going to do some cleanup. I'm going to come over here. Oh, okay. I guess it didn't like that. I don't need the trade bar, so let's hide that. Okay. Okay, there we go. Bid, ask, high, and low. Those are columns that I'm not going to be using today. So I'm going to highlight those four columns and I'm going to delete them. Okay. I'm not sure why the trade bar just keeps on popping up here. Maybe that's just a little bug that was introduced on the new version, but that's fine. Let me just wait until it goes away. In fact, I think I can hide it. Let me view here. Yeah, perfect. On the view menu, you can unhide things that you're not using, and that way it just goes away. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to resize my chart. One of the things you can do on radar screen is add technical indicators. Remember that I was talking to you about looking for signals, depending on the technical idea that you have in mind. I'm going to be using exponential moving averages as an example. So I'm going to click on the plus here to add a study. And yes, the same studies you have in charting, you can add them to radar screen. So if I come here and I look for moving average exponential, here it is, moving average exponential, two lines, I'm going to add it. I'm going to click OK. It adds those two columns to my radar screen. But what I want you guys to take a look at, and this is calculating, by the way. I mean, this is like putting a moving average on 500 individual stocks at the same time. That's impressive. And you can see that it's calculating each one of those values. But now, not only that, I'm able to tell radar screen, okay, now that you have the values of the moving averages, look for the ones that are crossing right now. On a 50 times a 100, it's going to be challenging to find stocks that are crossing right now. I'm not sure if we'll find any, but let's go ahead and check. Let me just check something first. Let me click on that very first symbol, SOLS, because what I want to look at is the values here. This is on a daily chart for this security. There's not a lot of history on this security of the S&P 500. I don't know much about SOLS, but it seems like it's a newly traded company. But if you look at the moving averages here, I don't see that it matches the values here on my radar screen. I see 47 and 46, and on the chart I see 10 and 19. The reason why they're not matching is because of the time frame. Remember that we talked about studies calculating based on the number of bars. First of all, we haven't set up our radar screen to 50 and 100. This is 50 and 100. So let's do it here on my radar screen. I'm going to right click on the header, go to studies, and edit moving average exponential for all symbols. And I'm going to change the fast length to 50 and the slow length to 100. Okay, After I do that, still the numbers don't match. I have a 45 and a 44. The reason for that is because of the time frame. Take a look at the interval. The interval is set to 5 minutes, which is not what I have on the chart. The chart is set to daily. So if I select the interval column and I go to time frame and I change it to daily, then is when the values match. Now I have a 19 and 10, which is exactly what I have here for SOLS, 19 and 10. So a few things you need to be aware of when you're doing scanning on technical indicators. First, that you're using the exact same parameters. In this case, I'm using 50 and 100. Second, that you're using the right time frame, daily on the chart and daily on the radar screen if you're looking for the numbers to match. Carl is asking about the I and the S for the linking. The S is for symbol and the I is for interval. I was disconnected from my TradeStation. Let me go ahead and try to connect again. I'm not sure why this happened though. All right, let's see. Okay, I'm back on. Perfect. So if you wanted to link the interval, you could do that as well, which makes it very interesting as well, because the interval here can be set to different things, and you can have the chart update to that as well. Okay, how do we find the symbols that are crossing right now? Let me right click on the header, go to studies, and I'm going to edit the moving average for all symbols. To do that, I need an alert. So let me set up the alerts and enable the alert. And this is something that is pre-programmed for most studies in trade stations. Every study already has the alert criteria built in. And all you need to do is come here and turn it on. And TradeStation will tell you whenever any of these symbols are crossing. I'm going to enable the alert. I want the alert to be continuous, but I want to disable message center. So I don't want to get any sounds or any pop-up messages. I just want to have a visual of the alert. And you can see in parentheses that it says for use when scanning for alerts and radar screens. So this is specifically created for that. The least you want is to have pop-ups and sirens going off for 500 symbols. We're setting up an alert for 500 symbols, and that's why we're disabling the messaging. I'm going to click OK and take a look at what happens. There is a little orange corner on each one of the rows, letting me know which ones have an alert enabled. They all have an alert enabled because I selected the whole column. But you can see that every so often we're going to see a symbol that has a red marker. For example, fast is a symbol that has a red marker. And if I click it, I want you guys to take a look at what's happening here to my moving averages. They are crossing on the current bar. Talk about looking for specific trading events and having software that allows you to do that. Let's see if we can find another symbol. Here's another one. The red marker, DD. This is DuPont. If I click it, again, this is a weird chart because you have DuPont trading at $80 a few days ago. All of a sudden drops at 38. I'm not really sure what happened to this security, but it's interesting that I was able to find it using my scanning capabilities. But here's another one. Here's MSI. This is Motorola. Again, crossing right now to the downside. Very clearly, I'm able to see the stocks that meet the criteria. And this just gets better and better because now I'm able to come here at the filter at the top here of radar screen and say, only show me the ones that are triggering the alert for the moving averages. So I select the moving average, doesn't matter which line you select, go to the alert and set it to true. And now we can just focus on the symbols that are triggering that alert. Out of the 500 companies that make up the S&P 500, there are 9 that are triggering the alert of the indicator that I'm interested in. You're not limited to only the indicators that come on TradeStation. You can use even your own custom studies. If you're not aware of this, TradeStation is an open platform. You can create your own custom indicators and any sort of calculated value you can bring into your platform. Okay, enough about scanning. Let me show you a little bit about trading. I'm going to open up a new workspace, go to apps, and click on Matrix. Why the Matrix? The Matrix is a interesting way of placing trades on TradeStation. I'm going to use the matrix, and I'm also going to be charting. So I like whenever I have the matrix open, I like to have a chart open on the side because you can also manage trades on the chart, gives you a great visual, a better visual. Of course, you have the trade bar at the top that we disabled just a moment ago, but if I go here to view and bring the trade bar back, you can place trades using the trade bar. Not so fancy because you have to populate every single box before the trade can go through. So let me go ahead and just disable the trade bar and show you how you can trade using the matrix. This is the matrix on Motorola. I know it because it says Motorola on top. And I'm going to go to the apps menu and click on chart analysis and just put a chart here on the right hand side. I'm going to link the two windows together so that they're both on Motorola. And if I change the symbol, they both change to that symbol. And I'm also going to change the time frame here to, I'm going to leave it on intraday. So this is Motorola trading right now at $392. We can see the price on the right hand side. We also see the price right here on the matrix. One of the things about the matrix is that it's going to give you a listing of every penny. Every penny will take a row inside of the matrix. And a lot of times that expands the view significantly, especially for securities that are highly priced. For example, Motorola. Each share is $392. So the price movements are not pennies. We're talking about nickels, dimes, and even quarters at a time. When you have a security that is priced lower, let's say like Bank of America, which is in the 30s, then you see those small price fluctuations. But for something like this or Tesla, which is highly priced, then the jumps are a little bit bigger. You can control the way that the prices are displayed right here at the top of my matrix. I'll just have to expand my matrix so you can see the menu. It's called the axis increment. What I do many times is that I remove a lot of the columns that I don't need from here. So I'm going to go to settings, columns, and go to the quote bar because there are some columns here that I don't need, like the trade size, the trade exchange. I don't need the ask size or the ask because I'm looking at it on the screen. So I just need that. I click OK, and now I have a reduced list of columns right there on the top, and it's just better. So notice that the axis increment is set to a penny. I can say set it to a. Now you can see that it skips all those pennies, and I'm able to see a condensed view of the range. Now I can see prices as high as 395 and as low as 391. So if you're looking or if you're loading a stock or an instrument that has a high value, you can adjust the way that the prices are displayed on the screen. So let's go ahead and submit a trading transaction. Buyers, and I have a few minutes just to show you this, but the blue is going to show you buyers and the red is going to show you sellers. Now I can go a little bit higher here and maybe do a quarter. Yep, if you do a quarter, you can see the full price range. You can see that Motorola has gone down to 391 and change. The only problem of using quarters is that you don't see the minute or the granularity of prices. I know that is somewhere around 391, but I can see it down here on the chart. That's the reason why I do the chart, because I can see that the low here was actually 391. Well, it's actually 391 even. So it's exactly that, 391 even. But here on the top side, 397.25, what is the high of today? Where the high of today happened right here, 397.21. So 397.21 is the high of today. So that's what the horizontal line is. But I can see, in addition to seeing the buyers and the sellers, I see how many shares are being bid for and how many shares are being asked for. So you can see that this number right here, the 500 or 479, this is a real-time updating number, but that is the number of shares that are being sold right now at that price. So these are the shares that are being sold. These are the shares that are being bought. The buyer wants a lower price. The seller wants a higher price. And that's why you have this inverse relationship in the matrix. But you can use the columns to submit your trades too. For example, at 391, I have about 94 shares waiting to get filled. I can say, I want to submit a trade here for 100 shares. You just click on the blue and that sends the order for you. I'm going to disable confirmations for now. This is my confirmation, by the way. Confirmations are great, But if you want to turn this into a one-click order entry tool, you can disable confirmations by checking the box here that says, don't show me this again. Say yes, and the order goes through. Take a look at how interesting that is. This is. I see the box here. This is an active order waiting to get filled, but I also see it right here on the chart. Pretty cool, huh? So anything you do here is reflected here so that not only you see the order active, but you also see the order in relationship to historical bars. That helps a trader determine where they want to set their stops or targets or any other information they want on that chart. If I move this closer to where the price is, let's say that we want to shoot for 392.50, I'm going to just click and drag. I drop it, and now you can see that my limit order is at 392.50. Let me drag my candlesticks to the left. You can see the line right there. So it makes it very convenient for you to have the two windows open side by side. If I click and drop this at 393, I'm going to get filled. Order filled. Because that's where the offer is. That's what the shares are being sold at. I got filled, and you can see this automatic horizontal colored bar showing me where I got filled. And you see the real-time P&L on the left-hand side. Take a look. You can see that my chart is also showing my position. I'm up about $18, which is not reflected here on my P&L because of my axis increment. It's only going to show me a P&L here on the matrix if it's above 25 cents or $25. So as long as I see my P&L increase to 25, I should see something here on my matrix, or at least 31 as it says here on the left-hand side. So does that make sense? So if you want to set profit targets and stop losses, you can do that using an OCO. Actually, let me cancel that because I clicked on place OCO, but this is an entry OCO. If I want a bracket, I have to switch it to an exit bracket with one limit and one stop. I can change the distance. Right now, they're set to 10 cents, but on a security as high as Motorola is, you may want to consider the price offset to something higher. 10 cents is going to be hit very quickly. So I can set my limit, let's say to $2, and I can set my stop to $1. When I click OK, and I say place OCO order, it's going to put those two orders on the screen. I also get a visual. You see them on the chart. If I say I want to move that target up to where the body of the candle is. If you wanted to do movements here on the chart, you have to enable chart trading. Notice that there's a button here called chart trading, which allows you to trade from the chart. You'll see that you get a similar trade bar to the one we see on the matrix. But with this trade bar enabled, I'm able to click on that line and drag it to the top of that body. It's going to give me that confirmation and that it moved to 396.27. And you can see the movement here as well. And the same for the stop. If you want to hit that low of today, I'm just going to grab that stop and drop it right here at the very low. And you can see that it changes here and it changes here on my matrix as well. So yes, there is a value of having these two windows side by side because you can see all your active orders and make adjustments as you go along. Now, experiment with all these buttons. We have plenty of educational videos on the web and also here on the TradeStation Today workspace. So if the matrix is a window that interests you and you want to learn more, come over here to the TS Today workspace. Go to the list of videos that are available here, and there's one on using the matrix, single click trading using the matrix. And there's another one using chart trading as well if you want to learn how to place trades using the chart. Okay, guys, I think I've run out of time. Hopefully you walk away with something new. Remember that we're meeting every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. This is an opportunity to make the class as interactive as possible. As you have questions, write them down. Join me on Wednesdays and we can address every single question you have. If you have any questions about how to find specific content, please email us. Let me put our email address right here in the chat. This is our team email. So it's education@tradestation.com. If it's not me, one of our team members will respond and let you know where those education pieces are. Again, great having you. Remember our webinar this afternoon on options. Make sure that you register for that if you haven't done so already. Have a wonderful afternoon, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye, everyone. Great having you.